a goodwill beginner. All my good works are needles in hay, and I try to do right based on my own sight, just like a blind man who's standing in the way. And all that I've taken, it was sadly mistaken to bleed for my own, for my sake. Now everything I have was stolen or borrowed. All that I've taken is much more than I can take. I was a fool in the quickness of the sand, and I was a leper trying to save my own skin. But now I'm a man who knows where I stand on the rock of ages. That's where I stand. Lord, you bore my refuse. You are my refuge. You gave up everything when you threw it all away. You gave me life new. You carried my weight through the evening to the morning and to the day. I was a fool in the quickness of the sand. I was a leper trying to save my own skin. But now I'm a man who knows where I stand on the rock of ages. Jesus, that's where I stand. On the rock of ages. Jesus, that's where I stand.
Welcome to Calvary Chapel Wednesday evening service. How you doing? So you'll be happy to know that my phone is now on silent. No pressure, people. No pressure. I even hit the do not disturb now. So what's funny, so everybody has their hats, right? And so he calls himself Mr. Happy. And it's inevitable. He always calls me on a Wednesday evening, right about, like I'm getting ready to head up here or something like that. Hey, and it's like, dude, it's Wednesday. And then sometimes I can hear his wife in the background saying, it's Wednesday. So it's funny. It's just what you get used to. You know what else could you get used to? Women's ministry, Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. That's what time you do it, right? Do you have to wear special hats for it? No? Good. $5:30. Okay, so we're moving to 5:30. So if it wasn't already tricky enough to get here at 6, now the challenge is 5:30. Is that a winter month thing, or that's just a thing you guys? Okay. I mean, so the reason I ask is, it like going to be one of those flex things that kind of moves back and forth, or are we just going to try 5:30? Hey, Jenny, one more note. Yeah, we're making all the slides new. So she is going to be busy after church tonight. That's all part of the fun. Alrighty, first Wednesday coming up, that is on September 3rd. And unless everything changes, and I know your slide may say one thing. In fact, your slide says Wednesday communion and the special service, all that stuff. We're going to switch it just to special service. We're going to move communion on to Sunday mornings. And I know you know that. Well, the people in here know that, but it's all for the people online that didn't know. We had our cool conversation the other day, and Dawn had suggested that, and I think she's probably onto something. Because we wanted to move it to Sunday mornings, that fewer people on Wednesday nights. Not that my Wednesday night crowd, I don't love them. Ian, you're going to miss it. That's what I'm saying. That's all I can tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, on Wednesday nights, normal, we're doing first and second. Actually, you know what? We're just doing Second Chronicles. Forget that First Chronicles. We're done with that. Now we're on to Second Chronicles, and that's the normal thing that we're doing. Friday morning prayer. If you want to be there, you get on the list with me. And that means you make physical contact with me and say, John, put me on that text thread. And so the last couple of Friday mornings, we've been here, and it hasn't been blazing hot. So, it's like the fall time's coming in. It's going to get more awkward when winter hits, because then we were like, now we want a heater turned on. And, you can never make people happy is what it comes down to. Anyways, so Friday morning prayer, encourage you to get onto that. Fellowship meal coming up is September 7th, and the theme is Tailgating Feast. So, however that means to you, what foods do you have at a tailgate? Football food. So we're going to get like those weird yellow cheese nachos. Do what? Dips. I've seen plenty of dips at the football games for sure. Ooh. Yeah, we'll figure it out. So whatever makes sense. Do what? Sausage balls. There's always a happy time when sausage is involved. Alrighty. Other than that, on Sunday mornings, we're in the book of Romans. And again, also things that you know. But it's fine, it's good, and you want to know all about that stuff. We are cruising through Romans, excited about that. There's some deeper parts that we're going to get into soon on that. That's going to be really, to me, it's going to be really, really cool. You guys may think, this guy's lost his ever-loving mind. And that's okay if you think that. Tonight, however, we are still in 2 Chronicles, and this time we're in chapter 2. Now, I'm going to say this because I know this to be the fact, but if I were to, every time we do a teaching, there really has to be a key verse that ties all the rest of it together. Like, what's the common thread, the thought, or whatever inside of that passage? And so I don't really announce that part, but it always has to be there in order for everything to make sense, because you have to have things in a theme, or at least it works better in our brains. You'll notice that when Jesus was teaching, he would oftentimes teach in parables, and so he's using stories to kind of get the message across. Well, we're not any different. We still need to kind of hear these things and understand them a little bit like that. And so for that That reason, we try to endeavor to do this. Now, tonight won't be as good as always in that sense because this is, there's a lot of movement in here, but we're covering one topic, and that's the building of the temple. Now, the verse that I would say to you would be the key verse. I actually narrowed it down to only 2 verses this time, and I'm only going to give you parts of those. We'll read them again here in a minute anyways. But the second part of verse 5 says, "For our God is greater than all gods." That's kind of the setup. And then the latter part of verse 6 says, "Except as a place, you want to build him a house, or about to build a house for him, except as a place to make offerings before him." And so we'll tie all that together here in just a moment. But what we have to remember and realize is God is bigger, better, and greater than all things. Our God is an awesome God, right? I mean, that's the old chorus thing, "Our God is an awesome God, he reigns," that kind of deal. So our God is a creator. The God that we worship, the God that we serve is the one who created this world. And there's a different dynamic to a God who created this world versus something like Baal or Dagon or whatever, weird goofy fish gods they come up with. It's our God created everything. So he has authority. He has all those pieces and parts working inside of it. And a lot of times we see idolatry and see that kind of work into its place. And what happens, and not so much now as it did back then. Back then, everybody kind of, really pulled to some kind of a god of whatever sorts they had. And today, more people are going to be inclined to say, well, there is no God. But the reality is there is a God. And a lot of times people have their own gods in their own lives. Sometimes it could be self and it could be jobs or whatever things that they do that they put above the Creator God. And so we have to make the distinction to know that, and this is why I encourage you, not just to say God, or if you want to say Elohim, which is really not proper in that sense, or Jehovah, or Yahweh, or whatever, however you want to do it. Remember that it's Creator God, the God who created all things. Because sometimes you can say, well, I believe in the God, and they're like, what God? Well, the God of the boogie monster or whatever. People come up with weird stuff. And so we want to make that classification, that clarification, so that we know what we're looking at. And that's what's going to happen tonight. So they built a temple, but it was a temple to who? Oh yeah, it was a temple to God. And who built it? Well, King Solomon built it. Why did he do it? Well, because David, his father, had encouraged him to do so. David wanted to do it. His hands are far too bloody, couldn't do it. But he really set everything up that he possibly could to make it ready so that Solomon, when it came time, would be able to build the temple. Now, let me ask you a wild question, and we're going to answer this as we go through the passage, but I want you to think about this. Can you only find God in the temple? No, God's everywhere. He's omnipresent. So then why would God need a house? It's not that he needs a house. We need to have a place that we can recognize where we meet with God. You'll notice a lot of people when they, we're getting ready for church on Sunday morning, like, you got to be good, kids. I mean, we don't have, our kids are all grown up and stuff now, so it's not a big deal. But back in the day, you need to act right. It's church day, that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, you should act right on every day, But there seems to be a recognition that when we go to what we call the Lord's house, or we go to church, and that's where we go to meet up with God. Not that you can't do it in prayer, in Bible study, in reading, and just absorbing whatever you can. You can do that every day of the week, and I encourage you to do so. But what I'm saying is it seems like there's a special place and peace for this. And I say that not to try to encourage everybody to come to church all the time, although that would be nice. But the reality is we say those things and do those things because it is how we relate things. And we're simple people, right? Just so simple. And sometimes we just have to have that connection to say, well, there's a reason that I do the thing that I do. The wisest man, Solomon, we talked about him last week and him becoming so super wise. One of the first things he does now is build the temple, which is definitely wise. Let's look at this now. 2 Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 1. Now Solomon purposed to build a temple for the name of the Lord and a royal place for himself. So you kind of think, well, wait a second. What's he doing? Well, he's building the temple that he was going to do, he was supposed to do, and his dad had told him, this is what you're going to do. But he's also going to build a palace, a royal palace for himself. Did I say place? I should have said palace. Hey, you know what? My my Bible's broken now. My eyes are broken, as it turns out. So he's going to build himself a royal palace. Now, will his palace be nearly as nice as the temple? It better not be, right? You thinking? Well, I mean, let's think about it this way. Would the temple have a television in it? But most of our houses have one of those, right? It's like, well, it's like we build the nicer things or whatever like that. Not that, like, having a TV is nice. That's, old thinking, I guess. But, we put things in our house that we wouldn't put in a temple. So he's going to make two separate buildings. And let me say this, would have two separate purposes. One that you live in and one that you go to meet God in. And again, that doesn't mean that you can't meet with God at your own house. But there's something unique and different about going to what we would call the house of the Lord, or whatever, however you want to phrase that. And so Solomon is going to build himself a royal palace, but more specifically is going to build God the temple. And now in verse 2, it says, and Solomon assigned 70,000 men to bear burdens, and 80,000 to quarry in the hill country, and 3,600 to oversee them. So we're kind of getting the layout of how things are going to, how things are going to run. He's setting up the planner, so to speak, or setting up the grid. And all right, here's how all these things are going to work, and he's kind of organizing the operation to see that it works, and that's a good thing. Now, here's what's kind of an odd deal, but he is going to reach to outside sources. Going now to verse 3, it says, and Solomon sent word to Hiram, the king of Tyre. As you dealt with David my father and sent him cedar to build himself a house to dwell in, so deal with me. Behold, I am about to build a house for the name of the Lord my God and dedicate it to him for the burning of incense, of sweet spices before him, and for the regular arrangement of the showbread, and for burnt offerings morning and evening, on the Sabbaths and the new moons and the appointed feasts of the Lord, our God has ordained forever Israel. Or has ordained, forever for Israel. Thank you so much. So, first thing out of the gate, Solomon, wisely, let me say this, reaches out to somebody who has some level of expertise in a place where Solomon doesn't. Now, you may think, wait a second, this is the temple, man. This is the house of the Lord, and they got to really go through this. And if you go through the building of the tabernacle, as Moses got the directions, got the information, and did all the things that Moses did, who did they use? Well, they used the Israelites, of course. They're in the wilderness. Not really a whole lot of people are coming to hang out with them. Most people are kind of nervous about them. But now we're building a structure. I'm not saying that the Israelites can't build structures, but what it may turn out to be is sometimes you want to do something, but somebody else is actually probably better fit to do that task to help you along with what you are good at. Now, I want you to think about it in that sense right there, because you may think, well, wait a second, but shouldn't it only been the Israelites who build the temple? Well, that would be true if it were only for the Israelites. Now, would they have these times when they come and they make their sacrifice and they do all the things? Of course. And would you, in order to function inside the temple, you had to meet certain criteria. And realistically, circumcision was part of that, which is uniquely Jewish at the time. And so it's like, well, really, this is built specifically for the Jews, but no, it's not. It was built for those people who would come to God. I would imagine, and I don't know this to be the fact, but I'm confident that it would be, I bet you there's Jewish people at that time, Israelites, who rejected God and never even stepped foot near the temple. You got to think that that's got to be true too, right? With all things balanced. And so to have some outside help to build this, first off, they're trying to build a better product, right? And sometimes you do that. But more specifically, and I think I like the way that this lays out, it almost gives you the indication that it wasn't just belonging to Israel. This temple was really the conduit or the connecting place with God. If you're in a connecting place with God, then do you have to be Jewish? No. Do you have to be born of Abraham? No. You could be born again, right? So just like say we are. Would you and I ever go into the temple should it be built in Israel? You'd like to. There's some places in there I ain't going. Specifically the Holy of Holies. No, thank you. But they're going to build another temple. We know that. The Bible tells us that's going to happen. And then you see the other pieces and parts that go with that. But so, would we want to go and see such a thing? I would 100%. As long as it's God's. I want to go somewhere to meet with Jesus. I don't want to just go to some random place. And let me say this too. There are certain places that we do go and we find and we meet with Jesus. We have that interaction. We have that talk, whatever it's going to be. And many, many times it's maybe different for someone than it is the other. And so for us, it's coming to Calvary Chapel, like, oh, hey, we're all happy to be here. And we learn something about Jesus. We grow and we're excited and all the fun things that I see everybody jumping and skipping out here. Oscar, no more skipping. Anyways, the excitement brews, everything happens, and you're like, man, I'm really in. And my prayer, my hope is that when you leave here, you're going, man, I love Jesus more because I'm starting to connect that, and it's starting to make sense, right? I mean, so that's really the goal of any pastor, I would hope. But, there's a place where you go and you connect with Jesus. I used to have this ladder. I mean, I've had many ladders. I didn't realize a man could own so many ladders in a lifetime. But back way a bit over, like you're a baby when this happened. So I had this ladder and feverishly afraid of some of the heights that I find myself getting into. And so I'm 30 feet above the ground, stuff like that, and just climbing these ladders on poles, working on cable TV, and there's some other risks. Some of the stuff I did on a ladder back 20 years ago makes me nervous to think about, but it was necessary for the job, right? But I was always concerned about it. So I had what I called my prayer rung. Not a prayer rug, prayer rung. A rung is an individual step on a ladder, for those of you who don't know that. So step one onto the ladder, Lord, carry me up and back down this ladder. And what's funny is after a while I built this confidence that, as long as I'm praying and God, you hold on to me. And so up and down the ladder I would go. I've never, except for that one time in February, I've never really fallen off a ladder. I didn't pray before going up that ladder. Did you know that? I was just working. What? Anyways, the times when I prayed at my bottom rung, see, that was my meeting place with Jesus sometimes it felt like. But it's more encouraging when you can meet with others and do all that stuff. So that's just another thing. Anyways, the temple is that place where people would go and they would meet with God. Now, not again any just random God, but more specifically the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and of course us as well. So now down to verse 5. And this is where I'm going to tell you these are more or less the key verses of the passage. So let's read them through. So verse 5 says, "The house that I am to build will be great, for our God is greater than all gods. But who is able to build him a house, since heaven, even highest heaven, cannot contain him? Who am I to build a house for him, except as a place to make offerings before him?" Now, in the process here, Solomon is realizing some things. Of course, he's the wisest guy who's ever lived, except Jesus, of course. So he's realizing some stuff. It's like, who am I? And you think about the who am I. Man, you should probably just do a search for who am I's in the Bible. Who am I to do this? Who am I to? And you can think of people like Isaiah. And then, of course, now Solomon, who am I to build this for you, God? And then he narrows it down because he makes this just profound understanding statement of except as a place to make offerings before him. God doesn't need a tabernacle. God doesn't need a temple. We need it. We need a place that we can associate or make like this mental association that says, that's where I meet God. That's where it's going to happen. And that's where we need to really kind of track and say, and let me say this, we need to make that place important, holy, and all the stuff like that, right? In our head, like, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to hear, or I'm going to meet Jesus, I'm going to talk to him. And like I say, every place may be different. When I was growing up, we had this weird tree out in the woods. Like, you had to go down this road, and it's a weird little deal like that. And, like, only one other person I've ever showed this tree to. The guy's like, that's a weird tree. But the tree went up and up like that it went. And there's like this little log place that you sit there. And I used to sit out there, and that was my little place to go. Just like that was tranquil. That was all whatever like that. Kids do weird stuff. Now you go out there, you probably get shot. I don't know. It's not that crazy out in the big town of Cumbia yet, but you never know. Anyways, so, but we need that place that we connect with stuff. Think about this. Where do you go for your food? Well, you go to the grocery store. Or maybe you go to your backyard and you take eggs out of the chicken. You don't take them out of the chicken. The chickens are done with them before you get them. Anyways. But you don't like, give me that egg. You wait for the egg to take its place outside of the chicken. Anyways. But we always have the place that's associated with something. If I'm going to go buy an automobile, I go to a car lot. Well, I don't, but normal people do that. If I'm going to, just like whatever thing, pick the thing that you're going to do, there's a place that you go to do that. Now, this is where hopefully we can make some dots connect. Let's say that your favorite store is a video game store. I'm going to just connect to you right now. Can I do that? He says, absolutely. Do the people in the video game store need to be in that video game store to be happy and live? No, they're going to make money. But outside of that, they could be anywhere doing anything. But if you're to go buy your video game paraphernalia or whatever it is, or video games or things, they buy weird stuff over there. But you got to go to a place to do it. And that's kind of the idea. It's like you don't really have to, but it works. Back in those days, there was nothing that says, do not forsake the fellowshipping of the saints. But it's at the same time, it's like we will make these times to go and to do sacrifice and these times to go to the temple. And so that was also an important thing. But I think we sometimes think that God is trapped inside the church, or God would be trapped inside the temple. And so as long as you're away from the church, it's like, I'm going to go do this nefarious bad stuff, right? I won't do it near church. Here's one of the funny ones that I think is always funny. I'm talking to somebody, and it's cuss this and cussing that, and it's annoying is what it is. I used to work with this guy named Rick. I still talk to him. I talk to him today, as a matter of fact. But he'd walk in and goes, hey, this is the preacher man. I'm like, oh, please stop doing that. Not that I'm embarrassed about Jesus, but people act different. Oh, you're a preacher man. Well, let me act holy for a minute, Like, dude, I just heard you for 5 minutes railing on some stupid topic, and yeah, whatever. They get this mindset that you have to be holy when look, that's good to recognize. But God's everywhere. And that's painful to think about sometimes because you want to do something bad. You want to do the wrong thing. You want to, just cause all sorts of crazy problems. But man, God's here, I would never do that at church. What about when you're not at church? Can you do, and this is kind of one of those things, and I think everybody fights with this, so don't be embarrassed if you fight with it also. But there's something that's just like that thing that you like to do, whatever it is. And would you do that in church? No. Consider that. And what an interesting thing that becomes. I did that a long time ago, and I started going, man, my life's about to get boring. And I asked my wife, it's become pretty boring, so we're good. I do have excitement from time to time, but yeah. I'm not upset, though. I love Jesus, so it works out really well for me. But God's not isolated to just the temple. God's not isolated to just the church. God happens to be everywhere, and I'm thankful for that. We want him when things are going bad, we want God there. When things are going good, it's like, God, just stay back right now. I got this. And isn't that kind of how we do things? And that shouldn't be the case. Anyways, back to the story at hand, which we ought to do. Solomon needs something. Now, he's already told the guy, hey, this is what's going on. This is how it is. But now Solomon's going to have his first demand. He's going to demand or ask something. We'll call it a demand just to be obnoxious, but really he's just asking the king, hey, this thing I need. Verse number 7 says, so now send me a man skilled to work in gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and in purple, crimson, and blue fabrics, trained also in engraving, to be with the skilled workers who are with me in Judah and Jerusalem, whom David my father provided. Now, something to remember there is these people are skilled already, but he kind of wants like an overseer, kind of a foreman to come in there and make sure everything's going well. It's important to think about this. I've worked under job superintendents on job sites and stuff, and some of them that knew what they were doing and some of them that did not know what they were doing. And those ones who knew what they were doing got a better product. Now, it's not to say that the other guys can't get a better product, but they can't quality control somebody if they don't know what they're looking at. That's a difficult task. So he needs that guy who can just oversee it and make sure everything's going well. Now, here's the odd part. Is he coming from Israel? No, he's outsourcing this job. Does that mean that the people of Israel are idiots and they don't know how to do stuff? No, I'm sure there's plenty of them that are fine with it. But he wants somebody to oversee something. See, there's a reputation that's been built. And if you look at the reputation that they had, the more or less the reputation of Tyre or Sidon or however you want to call it, the reputation was excellent building. There were standards that they probably just didn't have in Israel. And these people were like really, really good at what they did. And so, of course, he wants something that works well. And he wants that person who can just basically get it figured out and get it done. What's amazing is to understand that God prepared that man for the task. Sometimes you'll find yourself just able to do something. Have you ever had that problem? Like, I can just do stuff. I think it's probably most husbands, at least if you don't know how to do everything, you get a fair handle on it after a little while. The wife says, hey, you need to do that. Back in the day, you just had to figure it out or call somebody maybe. Now you get the joys of YouTube. You can figure it out faster. But sometimes there's just something that you can just simply do. You've seen that young person that can just pick up an instrument and play whatever. They're there, man. It's like God prepared them to do that thing. God equipped them to do that thing. And so now this person who's coming up from Tyre, I'm telling you that God equipped that person. But wait, it gets cool. We're going to come back to that. Let's come back to that in just a minute. To understand how God does equip people, to understand how things happen when they were building the tabernacle, let's look at Exodus chapter 31 and verse 1. It says, the Lord said to Moses, see, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, the son of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intelligence, with knowledge, and all craftsmanship to devise artistic designs, to work in gold, silver, and bronze, in cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood, to work in every craft. And behold, I have appointed with him Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. And I have given to all able men ability, that they may make all that I have commanded you. And so God personally programs these people to be able to do the thing. What I think is more interesting than that is that God doesn't make your hand move and do that thing, but God makes you want to do that. God gives you the desire to say, man, I just really want to do this thing, whatever it is. And so you've seen some people like their hands turn into magic when they touch that thing that they're good at. Sometimes you may hear some young person, they can belt it out and they can sing. Like, what a voice for Jesus, man. What an amazing thing. God made this person where they can sing. And then a lot of times they don't use it for Jesus, so it doesn't work out. But God has really, everybody has that thing. He's like, wow, man, I'm worthless. I ain't got no good to me. You do. You just may not understand what that is. You haven't sought it out. You haven't figured it out. What's the thing that you desire to do? And is it, something that can benefit God? Well, then that's probably something that God put in there. Do you really enjoy doing something, but it goes against God? That's sin. So we just make that clear distinction there, just so we all know that relatively well. But notice that in the building of the tabernacle, that God did set these people up to be able to do a task, to be able to do, just to have that ability to do it. Now, don't want you to mistake in something that we saw. This guy that we just talked about from Exodus, Bezalel, that guy. What tribe is he from? Tribe of Dan. Now you say, well, okay, that's kind of cool, whatever like that. Well, whatever. Like, what does that mean? Who cares about the tribe of Dan? Just wait. So continuing on, his second demand now. King Solomon's second demand to the king of Tyre. Send me also cedar, cypress, and algum timber from the Lebanon. For I know that your servants know how to cut timber in Lebanon, and my servants will be with your servants to prepare timber for me in abundance, for the house I am to build will be great and wonderful. So there is something to be known about these guys, these people of Sidon. They are amazing woodmen, right? What's like the loggers, maybe you call them. It's like there's a special, like you almost have to really understand the tree to be able to do that job properly. I don't understand trees. Trees are in danger when I'm near. We have these great oaks in the front of our house, and I started chopping limbs off. Not willy-nilly. I had my reasons, and because I'm getting tired of getting hit in the head while I'm trying to mow. That's number one. But I'm looking at these trees, and okay, I got to do this. Did you know there's a proper way to trim a tree? Didn't know that. And if it's a certain kind, like an oak, not only do you have to trim the proper branches in certain ways, but you need to put something on them too. Like, this is getting complicated. We had a pine tree that I must have killed because it died. So I probably cut all the branches wrong or something stupid like that. But there's a science to everything. There just absolutely is. And there's that person who can really tell the tree. And have you ever been walking through the woods with somebody who's that guy or that gal or whatever like that? And they can identify stuff. And you're like, man, I feel dumb walking with you. I'm like the stupidest person when it comes to wood. And so that's like the level that these guys are with anybody else. Like they are that level, they're top level woodsmen. And whatever their actual title would be. And so, of course, God says, this is where you ought to get these. And then he's like, absolutely, we need to go get these from these people. So on top of his request, Solomon also kind of cuts a deal into it too. He says in verse 10, I will give for your servants the woodsmen who cut timber 20,000 cores of crushed wheat, 20,000 cores of barley, 20,000 baths of wine, and 20,000 baths of oil. So they're not just being asked to do something for free. He's investing in this. He's giving them a paycheck to go do what they do. Now let me say this, the one thing I do know about trees is they're heavy. And they can be big and cumbersome and all the things that go with that. But man, that's not a job for the weak. And that's not a job for the, weak at heart, man, because that takes some dedication. And it takes ability, it takes knowledge, it takes, you really have to understand the craft. And again, they farmed that part of it out to some non-Israelite people. Why is that? Well, because they're doing the best of the best. And again, I would make the argument, and trust me, the Israelites are going to do plenty of work. It's not like they're not getting out from this thing. It's not like they hired a contractor to come in and build their temple. It's not quite like that at all. But they're definitely having to do some teamwork with some other people. And again, that should be the encouraging thing to tell you that it's like, well, it wasn't specifically and only to Israel. One of the places that we see this. Now, remember when I was talking to you before, or I think we've talked about this last week or something. 1 Chronicles tracks with 1 and 2 Samuel. 2 Chronicles tracks with 1 and 2 Kings. So let's see something that kind of matches up. In 1 Kings chapter 5 and verse 6, it says this. Now, therefore, command that cedars of Lebanon be cut for me, and my servants will join your servants, and I will pay for you and for your servants such wages as you set. For you know that there is no one among us who knows how to cut timber like the Sidonians. He recognizes the value, King Solomon does. He recognizes the value in having the person that can do what they can do it well, go out there and be efficient and do the thing you can do. Years ago, I had a friend in Arkansas, and he was building his house. And he said his dad was a contractor, and he built houses. But this was his house. And the son's going to build his house. And he was like in his early 30s, So they were doing all the things. They wired the place up. They did the plumbing, all that stuff. And he said, we hired sheetrock people. Like, but you've been doing everything else. And he goes, no, we hired sheetrock people because my dad said it's a better value. Like, explain? He said, they can come in and do in one day what it takes me a week and a half to do. Because they can just get in there, and he goes, and the price isn't that bad because for them it's just a small task. It's one day, but for me, that's just like a monster task. And so sometimes you're wise to find that craftsman or that person that has the ability, that God-given ability in most cases, to be able to just come and do something. I like to tinker on cars. So actually, I don't anymore. I'm getting tired and old. So I take my car to other people. And certain people I've gotten to trust, and certain people I just am scared of. But you find those people who can really do something well, and you do it right. Well, what's funny is I have the weirdest mechanic, and I can't tell you who he is because it'll just be out online. But I had one day, it's like everything broke down. Ian's car broke down. My truck broke down. Of course, the other truck and the van were down. So we were basically down to nothing. We were all driving my wife's van, basically, to get everything done. We were out. And so Ian's car's getting towed. My truck's getting towed. And it's just a bad deal. And I'm talking to the mechanic, and he goes, well, what's wrong with Ian's car? He tells me what it is, and he goes, dude, you can fix that. Okay. So sure enough, I crawl into that engine. I'm actually laying across the engine, and I fixed it, right? But I'm not in there rebuilding the motor. I'm not in there, redoing the air conditioner system, which confuses me still. I get the basic principles, but that's pushing it. I can do a small thing, and I think all of us can do a small thing, but it's like sometimes that big task needs to be farmed out. It needs to be done by somebody who can really do it. Now, verse 11. It says, "Then Hiram, the king of Tyre, answered in a letter that he sent to Solomon," and he starts this way, "Because the Lord loves his people, he has made you king over them. Hiram also said, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who made heaven and earth, who has given King David a wise son, who has discretion and understanding, who will build a temple for the Lord and a royal palace for himself." So his response is already positive. I'm confident that God had some work in that too, right? God's like, let's soften his heart. Let's let he's going to do this stuff. He's going to help you out, but let's get him there. Let's have him be calm with that. Now, here's where it gets really cool. We talked about this a moment ago. So again, well, let me just address the one thing that we see there, anyways. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who made heaven and earth. So here's a non-Israelite king making an observation that God is the creator God. Again, this is a good way to understand it, a good way to do that. And so I don't want to leave that behind before we go to what I think is probably one of the cooler little setups. In verses 13 and 14, we get to see something really cool. Let's look at this. "Now I have sent a skilled man who has understanding, Huram Abi, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan. And his father was a man of Tyre. He is trained to work in gold, silver, bronze, iron, stone, and wood, and in purple, blue, and crimson fabrics, and fine linen, and to do all sorts of engraving and execute any design that may be assigned him with your craftsmen, the craftsmen of my Lord, David your father." Did you catch where the man's from? So he's not 100% a Sidonian. He's not 100% Tyre guy, you know what I'm saying? His mama came from the tribe of Dan. Now, I don't know the significance of that, but I did pick up on that, and I hope that maybe you see that. Obviously, I'm making a point of it, so you're going to see it now. But like if you're just in your random reading, you're like, wait a second. So somebody from the tribe of Dan was the person who had all this stuff going on. So what is it about the tribe of Dan? I don't know. But I think it's interesting. I don't know how to pursue this information and how to dig any deeper, But I do find it kind of fascinating to find that somebody from the tribe of Dan was the be-all, do-all who could kind of get everything going. And here's this person who is, in theory, brought from outside of the nation, yet is half Israelite from the same tribe that the other guy was. Interesting. You would almost think that there is a reason for that, and so that's why I say the things I said. If you happen to be able to figure out the reason, let me know. I didn't find it as I was going through it, but I thought, what an interesting tidbit. Now just think about the person who is that person, the person who can work in gold, silver, bronze, iron, stone, and wood. That's not like a small task. I mean, we're talking a craftsman, somebody who can work with their hands and work really well. But, everything that's listed here has a different way to work with it. Gold and silver and bronze, they're very different. Iron, it's even different from those. Stone, that's a whole nother deal. Wood, not even the same. You can't put a rock on a table saw. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's very different stuff. You can. You're going to bust up your blade and you're going to be crying because those things are not cheap. What about working in the fabrics? Like, this sounds like an upholstery guy. I mean, if you just look at it like that, maybe he made some diamond-studded back seats with leather covered and wood. I'm like, this guy right here is something else. Yeah, we don't think about it like that today. We all want to be like, internet rich or whatever like that. But here's this dude who, in his own right, was able to maintain his house because whatever he put his hands to just worked. He was that guy. Still continuing his response, the king of Tyre says in verse 15, "Now therefore, the wheat and barley, oil and wine, of which my Lord has spoken, let him send to his servants. And we will cut whatever timber you need from Lebanon and bring it to you in rafts by sea to Joppa, so that you may take it up to Jerusalem." So not only is he going to help them out, not only is he going to get them all set up and hooked up and all that stuff, but he's also saying, here's how we're going to do it, man. We've got a game plan together. Now think about the comfort that has to give Solomon. This man has a game plan. He's like, all right, I need you to do this. Did Solomon say, now how are you going to do this? I need details. No, he didn't have to do that. It's not that this guy just randomly volunteers information. He has a game plan. Now let me say this too. For those people who are tradesmen, craftsmen, and stuff like that, they walk in, they assess the situation, they come up with a game plan, and they execute. I used to work for this boss, didn't like the guy, but one of the things that he said was incredibly wise. He liked to go scuba diving. So I'm going to tell you something outside of my knowledge base. But this is what he always said, and it's just held true, and it absolutely holds true. He always said, plan your dive and dive your plan. There's a king of Tyre who has a game plan. I mean, Solomon, he's been tasked to do this thing, and Solomon's kind of got a game plan, but everybody else is coming and going, look, man, I can get this done, and here's how I'm going to do it. It means that Solomon doesn't have to micromanage. This guy he's like, okay, look, I got the right person to do the job, man. If you have the right person doing the job, you don't have to be looking over them all the time. You don't have to be looking over their shoulder, trying to figure this, trying to figure that. You simply make it work. And so it's better that this guy, now let me say this. He didn't come out day one out of the womb going, okay, I've got a plan. No. Plans are typically learned, or the idea and the scope of how you're going to do your plan is typically learned from making bad choices and going, ooh, that didn't work. There's a few places in this world where it's okay to hear, oops, that didn't work. Contracting tends to be okay, unless it's a big one, and sometimes those can get expensive. You never want to hear it from your doctor, oops, whoa. Or you don't want to hear the, ooh, you got to come see this. I've had that happen to me before. Ooh. And just like, I'm done for. It's like if I'm the teaching tool today, this is not a good thing. I blew an eardrum out in Germany, and I was like, oh, it's so painful. And the guy goes, that's like one of the worst ear infections I've ever seen in my life. And so he's grabbing people to come look at the worst ear infection he's ever seen in his life. And then all of a sudden, pop. And he's like, oh, And suddenly, I was just fantastic. I felt fine. Problem was, my ear was dripping not blood because it popped and all that stuff. And so now it became a super interesting thing. And I got to see most of the people in the clinic that night. Not what you want. You want that person that comes in and just knows it, like, oh, I've seen 5 of these already today. I got this figured out. I got the game plan. I know what's going on. I can do this. I can make that happen. That's the person you want. And so this guy who's half Israelite from Tyre comes in and goes, I got this covered, man. The king's like, no, man, I got this covered. We know how we're going to do it. We're going to get the wood down there. We're going to do it this way. We're going to float it down there in rafts. Okay. So much for killing, drying your wood, right? But anyways, they're going to get it down there in rafts, and everything's going to be fine. And so, hey, they've got a game plan. They can put this thing together, and they're not worried. And that's one of the reasons you get these professional tradesmen in, because they look at something and think, it's simple. I don't know how many times somebody's come in, like called me in, and like they're in a panic because their stuff is broke. And not kind of broken. I mean, it's like definitely broken, right? And then it's almost inevitable. You always hear I may say something like, oh, this is super easy. I can fix this in like 5 minutes. And they're like, oh. They're almost upset. I will say this. The bigger the problem, usually it's the easier the fix. When you get that person who's confident to doing what they're going to do, it gives you a great deal of comfort too, doesn't it? It's not a story about John, but it's like, this is things I can relate to, so I'm sorry for this. But when I worked in Germany, I worked in an auto parts store. And after a while of seeing the same things over and over again, you kind of get used to it. You're like, oh, I know what I'm doing here. So somebody come in, I think I need to get an alternator. Well, can I check your car? Yeah. Yep, alternator's bad. How much is an alternator for that car? That's like $200-something. And this is back 20-something years ago. They're expensive. Some German cars are very expensive to fix. They'd be like, you know what? Can I try one thing on your car? Because somebody showed me a trick, and I figured something out. And Bosch makes this little bitty thing that goes in the back of an alternator, and that's what dies every time. They probably don't build the alternators rebuildable like that anymore. Like the old Mercedes, Volkswagens, BMWs, all that stuff. They all had this one Bosch piece, and it cost a couple dollars. And so give me a second. Take it out, put the new one in. All right, let's put it back on the machine and see what we get. And boom, it's fixed. They came in with a catastrophic problem. They got an easy fix. Not like I'm super smart with a car, but I knew one thing. It made me look smart for that little bit of time, right? But think about, that's the level of craftsman that we're looking to see to come build a temple. Can you think of a more important building to build? Can you think of a more important structure or a more important customer, let's say? English is tough for me. Can you think of a more important customer than God? I can't. So this is a highly crucial, highly important building, and its customer is the creator of the world. And you're going to go get his creation and cobble it together to make him a proper place to be. Now that's pretty cool. And you do want the top dogs on there. You want the guys who got it figured out. You want all that. Now, verse 17 could be controversial, and I think it's just the way they translated it. I haven't looked at it in the King James to see what it says there. I'm curious, though. If anybody has a King James, let's look this up here in a minute. 2 Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 17, it says, Then Solomon counted all the resident aliens who were in the land of Israel after the census of them that David his father had taken, and there were found 153,600. 70,000 of them he assigned to bear burdens, 80,000 to quarry in the hill country, and 3,600 as overseers to make the people work. And so, as I was reading this and preparing, I kind of chuckled to myself, and it's like, they used immigrant labor. How funny. Sometimes the person who doesn't live in your neighborhood is probably better than you. Just the way it works out. I I see that, and I see that not that the Israelites were incapable of doing something, but they saw that they needed a higher end technical side. Is it offensive? Well, it shouldn't be. Is it a problem? Well, again, it shouldn't be. What we see and what we begin to understand is that God's house is important. And it's not important for God. It's important for you and for me. Where would we have been had there not been a temple? Had there not been all the sacrifices? I mean, you would have a lot fewer stories about Jesus for sure. There'd be no stories of Jesus turning over tables and chasing people with whips. I mean, there'd be like, what's going on here? There would be no picture of Jesus to come. The temple was a crucial, important building, as was the tabernacle. And the tabernacle, of course, more or less is kind of supposed to be set up as heaven, and as would be the temple as well. So they're crucial buildings. Blueprints from the King of Kings. Material from the very creator of this world. Skills given by that creator to men who could just simply do it. The temple was no mistake. It wasn't a second thought, an afterthought, or any thought. It was the primary focus. As Solomon talked about building that, he put that first, and then, also I'm building my royal palace. But the focus, at least at that time, was specifically on the temple. Was specifically on the thing to where we go meet God. So let me say this one last thing, and we'll cut us loose. Is it important to go meet up with God? Yeah, it is. Is it important where you do it or how you do it? Yeah, those things are also important. And I don't say that to be weird or try to making sure everybody comes back to church kind of thing. No, it's not that at all. You've got to make it a point to connect with Jesus. And you probably won't do that at the Cracker Barrel. I'm just going to pick on those guys today. Everybody's picked on them now, right? I don't think they were a Christian company before. They just had goofy decorations. And anyways, I don't care about the store part. That's the wife's thing. But another story for another day. There's an importance to meeting up with God. There's an importance to hearing that. So let's make that one of the things in our lives that we want to do or want to try to keep focus on. It's like we know that God's with us at all times. And we know that he carries us through all the burdens and places and weird stuff. Let's go to meet up with God, to hear his word, to really learn and grow, and to maybe input and give into it as well, right? It's like, let me tell you about Jesus. Let me tell you, let me hear you, how many times have you talked to somebody who's been in the church for years and years and they know stuff? Like, and they can just rattle off verses. Those people are amazing because they're in there and they're invested. So, anyways, I thought it was a great chapter. Maybe you guys have voted up and down. I don't know. Can you vote on this stuff? Probably not. It's a fantastic chapter. It's in God's Bible. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you this evening. We're thankful, Lord, that you love us, that you have made provision for us to do these things. Lord, to be your people. Lord, we need to do things by your strength, by your might. So as we go on throughout this week, we ask that you would continue to teach us through your Holy Spirit. Prepare us to come meet up with you again. Lord, strengthen us in your word. And Lord, thank you for Jesus. We ask this all in Jesus' name.